Okay, let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like you're just drowning in distractions?
Ah,
Like you're constantly busy, but never really getting anything important done. I know I do. And that's exactly why we are diving deep into Deep Work by Cal Newport today. We're going on a mission here to uncover those secrets, to really focusing in a world that just seems determined to pull us in a million different directions.
well, it's pretty fascinating. You know how some of the most brilliant minds throughout history, they just seem to understand the power of deep work? Like Carl Jung, he retreated to a tower in the woods just to write and develop his groundbreaking theories.
Yeah, or J.K. Rowling. She famously checked herself into a luxury hotel just to finish the last Harry Potter book.
Yeah.
Free from distractions of daily life and all.
Right, exactly. It's like they knew that to produce truly great work, they needed to create the space where their minds could just focus without interruption.
Yeah, even Bill Gates, the
Mm.
co-founder of Microsoft, right? He takes regular think weeks
Oh, wow.
in a secluded cabin, to disconnect from everything and just concentrate deeply on the big picture.
Mm.
And you know what? It seems to be working out pretty well for them.
I'd say so.
So if you're ready to unlock your own potential for deep work, make sure you hit that subscribe button, okay? Because we are about to break down exactly why it's so crucial and how you can start cultivating this skill in your own life.
All right, sounds good. So, Newport. He starts by highlighting this stark contrast between those who embrace deep work and those who kind of get swept away by the current of constant distraction. He introduces us to this guy, Jason Ben. He's a financial consultant. And he's struggling to keep up in this world of overflowing inboxes and just endless demands on his attention.
Poor Jason.
Yeah.
He sounds a lot like me on a Monday morning,
Yeah.
except maybe without the financial consultant part.
Yeah.
But on a more serious note, this idea that we're just constantly bombarded with distractions, it really resonates, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's like we're expected to be on all the time, right? Responding to emails, checking social media, attending back-to-back meetings.
Yeah, exactly. And in contrast to Jason, we see Cal Newport himself building a highly successful career in academia by prioritizing deep work.
So he's kind of like walking the walk,
Yeah,
not just talking the talk.
exactly.
It's going to be cool.
He manages to publish books, earn a PhD, land a professorship, all while rarely working past 5 or 6 p.m.
Wait, hold up. He's doing all of that A&D, maintaining some semblance of a work-life balance.
Yeah.
I need to know his secrets.
Well, one of his key insights is that in the knowledge economy, there are these 3 groups that consistently rise to the top: high-skilled workers, superstars, and owners.
Okay.
And what do they all have in common? They've mastered the art of deep work.
So it's not just about working hard. It's about working smart. It's about dedicating your attention to those tasks that really matter and learning to just filter out the noise.
Precisely. And to understand how deep work actually translates into skill development, Newport introduces the concept of deliberate practice.
Ah, yes. Deliberate practice. It's not just about mindlessly going through the motions. It's about focused, intentional effort aimed at improving a specific skill.
Exactly. Think about a musician meticulously practicing scales, or an athlete refining their free throw technique. It's about pushing beyond your comfort zone, seeking feedback, and constantly striving to improve.
Right. And here's where it gets really cool. There's actual science behind this. Newport explains that when we engage in deliberate practice, we trigger this biological process called myelination. Essentially, what happens is this fatty tissue called myelin, it starts to build up around the neurons in our brains.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And what does myelin do? It acts like insulation, making those neural pathways just fire faster and more efficiently. So the more you practice a skill with focused attention, the more myelin you build up, and the better you get.
It's like literally rewiring your brain for success.
It is. So think about your own career. What skills are absolutely essential for you to excel, and how much focused, deliberate practice are you dedicating to those skills?
That's a great question for all of us to consider. Now, before we dive into the specific strategies for actually cultivating deep work, we need to address the elephant in the room. The reality is, in our hyper-connected world, deep work is becoming increasingly rare.
It's true. And Newport points to a number of culprits, from the rise of open office layouts to the constant pressure to maintain a social media presence. These trends, while often well-intentioned, they're actually working against our ability to focus deeply.
Yeah, speaking of distractions, if you're finding this deep dive helpful, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, okay, so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Wait, now back to the enemies of deep work. I think one of the most insidious is this idea that we need to be constantly connected. Like we have to be available to answer emails and respond to messages at a moment's notice.
Yeah, Newport calls this the principle of least resistance. The idea is that in the absence of clear feedback about what's truly valuable, we tend to gravitate towards the easiest and most immediately gratifying behaviors.
Oh, it's so true. It's like, why spend an hour focusing deeply on a challenging task when I could just clear out my inbox and feel like I've accomplished something, even if those emails weren't actually that important in the grand scheme of things?
Exactly. And he tells this story about the Boston Consulting Group. They actually forced a culture of connectivity on their employees, despite evidence that it was making them less productive.
Oh, wow. It's like they were prioritizing the appearance of busyness over actual effectiveness. Does that sound familiar to anyone?
Yeah.
I know I've definitely fallen into that trap before.
And here's another challenge. In a lot of knowledge work, there's a lack of clear goals and metrics, which can make it harder to justify deep work. Shallow work is so visible, right? You're answering emails, attending meetings, constantly looking busy.
But deep work, by its very nature, it's often invisible. You're thinking, reading, researching, writing, activities that don't always have immediate, tangible outputs.
Yeah. Right, and that makes it easier for people to get away with just looking busy, rather than actually doing the deep work that leads to meaningful results. It's a real challenge in our modern work culture.
It is. But luckily, Cal Newport doesn't just leave us hanging with a bunch of problems and no solutions. He offers a ton of practical strategies for cultivating and protecting deep work, which we'll get into right after a quick message from our sponsors. Stick around. You won't want to miss this.
So we've established that deep work is becoming, well, increasingly rare. And that's a problem. But here's the good news. It's a problem we can actually solve.
Okay, tell me more.
Yeah.
I am so ready to ditch those distractions and embrace the power of deep work. But how do we actually do that? Where do we even begin?
Well, Newport, he argues that deep work isn't just about being more productive. It's about tapping into this deeper sense of meaning and satisfaction in our work. He introduces this idea of flow states.
Oh, yeah.
Those moments when you just become so engrossed in a task that time seems to disappear.
I love those moments. It's like you're in the zone. You know, you're completely absorbed in what you're doing. Everything just clicks. You lose track of time. You're super focused.
Yeah.
And you're incredibly productive.
Exactly. And research shows that those flow states, they're directly linked to feelings of happiness and fulfillment.
So it's not just about getting more work done. It's about enjoying the work itself and feeling good about what you're accomplishing.
Right. And Newport takes this idea even a step further. He draws on some fascinating philosophical arguments to link deep work to a sense of craftsmanship.
Okay.
He cites philosophers Hubert Dreyfus and Sean Dorrance Kelly. They argue that deep work allows you to approach your job with the sense of pride and mastery.
Oh, interesting. So it's like the difference between just, doing a job and truly taking ownership of your craft. It's about striving for excellence and finding satisfaction in the process itself.
Exactly. And he gives this great example. Rick Furr, the master swordsmith. Newport profiles him in the book. Furr spends his days meticulously crafting swords, using these traditional techniques, and he talks about finding immense joy and satisfaction in the dedication and focus required by his craft.
It's amazing how he's able to find so much meaning in what he does. And it's a great reminder that this idea of craftsmanship, it isn't limited to, traditional trades. It can apply to any type of work, whether you're a writer, a programmer, a teacher, even, yes, a financial consultant like our friend Jason.
Absolutely. So here's a challenge for you and for everyone listening. What are the tasks in your own work that allow you to enter a flow state? How can you approach your job with more of a craftsmanship mindset? What would it take for you to find that same level of satisfaction and meaning in your work that someone like Rick Furr finds in his?
These are some big questions, but they're definitely worth pondering. Now, I know what you're all thinking. This all sounds great in theory. But how do we actually make deep work a reality in our lives?
That's the million-dollar question, right? And luckily, Cal Newport has some answers. In fact, he offers a whole toolbox of strategies for cultivating deep work. And that's what we're going to dive into next. So if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and get ready for some actionable advice that you can start implementing today.
Okay, you've convinced me. I'm hitting subscribe right now. And I'm ready to learn how to actually make deep work a part of my daily routine. Let's do this.
All right, let's get tactical. Newport starts by emphasizing the importance of scheduling deep work. It's not something that just happens magically. You have to be intentional about creating time and space for it.
Right, so we're talking about blocking out time on our calendars,
Yeah.
turning off notifications, and basically telling the world to leave us alone for a while.
Exactly. And he outlines these four distinct philosophies for scheduling deep work, each with its own, pros and cons.
Okay, I'm all ears. Lay it on me.
Mm.
What are these deep work philosophies?
First, there's the monastic philosophy. This is for the truly hardcore deep workers. Think writers or researchers who retreat to secluded cabins for weeks or even months at a time to focus solely on their work.
Okay, that sounds a little extreme for me. I like my creature comforts too much for that. What are the other options?
Well, there's the bimodal philosophy,
Hmm.
which is a bit more flexible. It involves dividing your time into distinct periods of depth work and periods of shallow work.
Okay.
So you might dedicate a few days each week to being completely monastic, shutting yourself off from the world, focusing solely on those deep work tasks.
I can see how that would be helpful, like having a mini retreat built into your week.
Right. And then on the other days, you can handle all the shallow stuff like emails, meetings, and those administrative tasks.
Okay, that makes sense. What are the other two philosophies?
Next up, we have the rhythmic philosophy, which focuses on establishing a consistent daily routine. So you might block off the first 2 hours of every morning for deep work, no matter what.
I like that. It's like creating a habit of deep work, much like you would create a habit of going to the gym or meditating.
Exactly. And finally, there's the journalistic philosophy, which is about fitting in deep work whenever you can find a free block of time in your schedule.
It sounds like it would be good for people with unpredictable schedules,
Uh,
or for those of us who just have a hard time sticking to a rigid routine.
exactly. Now, regardless of which philosophy you choose, Newport stresses the importance of rituals to support your deep work efforts.
Rituals, like what kind of rituals?
Well, for example, he recommends establishing a clear start and end time for your deep work sessions, having a dedicated workspace, and eliminating all distractions. So, no phones, no email, no social media, no nothing.
It's about creating an environment where your brain knows it's time to get serious.
Right. And he also talks about the power of grand gestures, taking those dramatic steps to create that ideal deep work environment.
Like J.K. Rowling checking into that luxury hotel to finish writing Harry Potter. I'm starting to think she was onto something.
Exactly. It's about signaling to your brain that this is serious, focused time.
Okay, so maybe I don't need to rent out a hotel room,
Mm-hmm.
but I can definitely create a dedicated workspace and set some clear boundaries for myself.
Exactly. Even small changes can make a big difference. He also talks about this interesting concept of productive meditation, using walks or commutes to, actively think through a work problem.
Oh, so instead of just zoning out and listening to music,
Yeah.
we could actually be using that time to make progress on challenging tasks.
Right. It's about being more intentional with those in-between moments and finding ways to just squeeze in more deep thinking throughout the day.
Okay, I like it. It's like sneaking in a mental workout while I'm on the go. Now, before we move on to the next part, where Newport offers strategies for taming shallow work, I want to remind our viewers to hit that subscribe button if they're enjoying this deep dive. We've got tons more great content coming your way.
That's right. And if you're really serious about mastering the art of deep work, you won't want to miss what's coming next.
All right, so we've talked about the importance of deep work, and we've explored some strategies for cultivating it, but let's be real for a second. Even with the best of intentions, it's so easy to just get sucked back into that vortex of shallow work.
Oh, it's true. Shallow work is like this siren, constantly luring us in with its promises of like instant gratification and easy wins. But in reality, it's often just a time waster. That keeps us from doing our best, our most meaningful work.
So how do we fight back? How do we tame that shallow work beast and reclaim our time and attention?
Well, Newport offers some tough love on this front. He starts by pointing out that we are often terrible at estimating how much time we actually spend on shallow work.
It's like when you get sucked into a social media scroll hole and suddenly an hour has disappeared.
Exactly.
I swear I only meant to check it for a minute.
Right. And Newport suggests this, well, it's a simple strategy, but it's brutally effective to combat this. Schedule every minute of your workday.
Every minute. That sounds intense.
It is, but it forces you to confront the reality of how you're actually spending your time. He even recommends using a time tracking tool just to really expose those hidden pockets of shallowness.
It's like holding up a mirror to your workday, showing you exactly where all your time is going.
Precisely. And once you see that, cold, hard data, you can start to be more intentional about minimizing those shallow work tasks.
Okay, so let's say I've done my time tracking and I've realized I'm spending way too much time on shallow work. What are some practical strategies for cutting back?
Well, Newport, he emphasizes the importance of being ruthless in identifying and eliminating those low-value tasks. Are there meetings that could have been emails? Reports that nobody actually reads?
Oh, I'm sure we could all find a few things to cut from our to-do lists.
Absolutely. And he also introduces this concept of fixed schedule productivity. This involves setting a hard limit on your work hours and then working backward to figure out how to get everything done within that time frame.
So it's about setting those clear boundaries and forcing yourself to be more efficient with your time.
Exactly. And another strategy he suggests is using sender filters to manage incoming email more effectively.
Sender filters. I'm intrigued. Tell me more about how those work.
Okay, so basically, it's a way of setting expectations for people who are emailing you. You could include a note in your email signature explaining that you only check email at certain times of day, or you could create an autoresponder that directs people to an FAQ page or a form they need to fill out before you'll respond.
It's about being proactive, taking control of your inbox, instead of letting it control you.
I like it. Okay, hit me with another one. What other strategies does Newport have up his sleeve?
Well, this one might be a bit controversial, but he suggests quitting social media, at least for a while.
Gasp. I can hear the collective gasp of millions of social media addicts out there, but I have to admit, there's a part of me that's intrigued.
He recommends a 30-day social media packing party. It's like decluttering your digital life. You remove the apps from your phone, log out of your accounts, and commit to a full month without social media. So it's like a digital detox, a chance to break free from the constant notifications and that endless scroll.
Exactly. And the goal isn't necessarily to quit social media forever. It's to reevaluate your relationship with these platforms and to see what happens when you just disconnect for a while.
It's funny, we often fear that we'll miss out on something important
Yeah.
if we're not constantly connected. But Newport argues that that fear is often unfounded.
Yeah, he's right. And he also points out that social media can create this false sense of importance and distract us from the things that truly matter.
It's so easy to get caught up in that comparison game or to feel like we need to be constantly producing content. It's exhausting.
It is. So the challenge he poses is this. Have you ever considered a social media break? What's the real value you're getting from these platforms?
Those are some powerful questions for all of us to consider. And really, that's what this entire deep dive comes down to, isn't it? In a world that's increasingly designed to distract us. Are we brave enough to choose depth?
It's not an easy path, but as Cal Newport so eloquently argues, it's a path that can lead to a more productive, more meaningful, and ultimately more fulfilling life.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into deep work, I want to leave you with a challenge. What's one small change you can make today to start cultivating more depth in your life? Maybe it's scheduling a block of uninterrupted time for deep work. Maybe it's finally taking that social media break you've been thinking about.
Whatever it is, the key is to just start. The path to deep work is a journey, and every step you take brings you closer to harnessing the power of focus to achieve extraordinary things.
And that's it for this deep dive into deep work. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more insights like this. And until next time, stay focused, love.